Welcome to Horrid and Vicious, a true crime podcast. I'm Candy.
And I'm Kota.
And this is episode 10, Clowns Can't Get Away with Murder, John Wayne Gacy.
So, as the title says, I'm finally doing the John Wayne Gacy episode. Because
you've been talking about this the whole time.
Literally, even before we started the podcast, I was talking about wanting to do this asshole.
Yeah, I know that you just wanted to do some smaller stuff first, so
yeah,
this is your first, big case.
And this is my first serial killer case as well.
And
so,
we're on episode
obviously...
10 episodes.
And we're on episode 10. It's crazy.
We've been doing this for
episodes.
2.5 months.
It's crazy to think about that, because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like longer for me.
It's it feels like we've been doing it forever, but at the same time, we just started.
Yeah, for real.
It's probably going to feel that way forever, so.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Hopefully we do this for a very long time. I plan on this being for the rest of my foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we can do every week to just sit and talk.
Exactly.
Once a week. And also make fun of serial killers and people that kill for stupid reasons, because pretty much every reason is a stupid reason.
Most reasons
especially for John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, just because he wanted to. That's never a good reason.
So, I will say that this one is going to be, I don't know how much time we're going to have for, rambling, because this one is long. This one's longer than my Selena one, and that one, I think, was 2 hours. Which was, to be fair, that is most of that, me just threatening to fight
Selena
Yolanda.
One was, 1 hour, 20 minutes or something. It was a pretty...
It was, almost 2 hours, and the
one.
whole time was basically just me threatening to fight Yolanda.
Yeah, well... I think that one I also had to cut a bunch of our stuff out, so it ended up being shorter because I had to cut out. We just kept
Yolanda.
Going off on completely unrelated things that just did not fit, and I had to cut them out.
Yeah, I don't think that this one's gonna, because this one is really the whole thing is tragic. So
I know quite a bit of it, but it's been a really long time. So
yeah.
I think that a lot of it, while I've definitely heard about this stuff before, it's still going to shock me just because it's been a long time, so I've forgotten a lot of it.
It's literally so gross.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so gross. Okay, so I have a few, just preemptive warnings for this one. Obviously we have murder, we have rape, sexual abuse, kidnapping, torture, we have abuse, physical, sexual, mental. We have,
Was his stuff involving kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was
pedophilia.
I thought it was, but I couldn't remember, so.
Pedophilia, homophobia, just a lot. There's just a lot.
All of the previous trigger warnings, but against children.
No, literally everything.
Yeah, I would call that a big one, because things are they hit so much harder when it's against a kid. It's bad no matter what, right? But when it's against a kid, it's just oh, my heart.
Oh, and alcoholism.
Oh yeah, that can be a trigger warning. That's a good one to put on there.
There's just so many.
Yeah, that's important though. I wouldn't have thought to put that on one.
Yeah, and it's not all just what John Wayne Gacy did. Some of it is from his own childhood. So there's just a lot of tragedy here. Yeah. Which sucks.
No comedy, just tragedy. He could not be in theater. Yeah,
pretty much. I mean...
And yet he was a clown.
I was gonna say.
He tried to be comedic.
He tried. So we're gonna start off by when John was born, which was March 17th, 1942. And he was born to John Stanley Gacy and Marion Aline Robinson.
Is this your oldest case, too?
I think it is. I think it is my oldest.
You've done so many recent ones.
I've done a lot of recent ones. I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, this one.
We got to take a trip to the past real quick.
Yeah, just real quick. We gotta jump to the 40s. So, his father John was a World War I veteran, and he was also a mechanic, and he was an alcoholic. Yeah, they were. Yeah. He was an alcoholic, and he was also abusive to John and his sisters. So if he found that they were misbehaving, or he thought that they were misbehaving, he would beat them with a razor belt.
Oh my God.
I didn't see much of like him being as verbally abusive to his sisters, but I can imagine that he was, being that he was an alcoholic, and that's generally what they tend to do. But he would belittle John all the time. He would call him stupid, constantly compare him to his sisters, and he was just never good enough in his father's eyes.
Yeah, I think they can be, like, it's so weird because it depends. I think a lot of times fathers are more harsh on sons, and then mothers are more harsh on daughters.
Yeah.
And I
especially in this time period.
Yeah.
Especially in this time period.
Sometimes they're just harsh to both, but a lot of times.
Yeah. And it seems like John Sr. was harsh to all of his children, but he was really harsh on John. And John was described as a sickly, overweight, and uncoordinated child, and he had issues bonding with other kids his age. He had a heart condition, which meant he couldn't play with his classmates, so he was alienated at school. So he really wasn't able to make a lot of friends because he just couldn't play because he had this really bad heart condition. And of course, his father saw this as just another failure. You know, my kid's got a heart condition. God, I really wish he was like his sisters. What a failure.
It's crazy to think, like, you're beating your kid who has a heart condition so severe that they can't play with other kids, and you're beating them?
Yeah.
Maybe you're, like, causing health issues here, buddy. Make it make sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And another tragic part of John's childhood was that he was sexually assaulted multiple times. From the ages of 6 to 10, he was repeatedly undressed and played with by a teenage daughter of one of his mom's friends.
Oh my gosh.
And he was also molested by a family friend and contractor, so he was just being tormented by people in his life that really should have been there to help him and be a friend to him.
Yeah, well, and there's no guarantee that it would have made him not as bad, but there's still, you know, nature versus nurture. Like, there is, you know, it's different for each person, where, like, sometimes people, they take their bad experience and they end up just becoming terrible from it. But some people are just kind of born that way, sort of thing. And some people go through these bad experiences and don't become, like, evil people. So it's such a tough thing. Like, we don't know what would have been different had he been better taken care of by the people around him, watched out for properly by the people who were supposed to.
Right.
But, like we always say, like, you can feel bad for kid John Wayne Gacy. You can't feel bad for adult John Wayne Gacy, because there's, you know, that doesn't excuse what he does.
No, it absolutely does not excuse what he does.
Other people go through that shit, and you don't even know that they ever went through it, because they, you know, they improve their lives and they become amazing people who you wouldn't even imagine they had been through something so terrible, sort of thing. So
Right. And we'll get into more of, like, what John's adulthood was like before he started all this shit. But I will say, between the ages of 10 and 12, him and a friend were accused of sexually fondling a young girl. So I think that was more sort of him mirroring what he was experiencing at home, because he was described as not necessarily understanding how to socially bond with other kids. And I think his experiences at home were all he really knew. So maybe in his own way, as a kid, he was just trying to bond the only way he knew how.
And then, like, if he also, like, had, like, these issues with, like, the learning, you know, how to function with other people and things, not having a lot of friends, if his friend was the one who started it, he might have just gone along with it too, even if he wasn't the instigator. So that it could, you know, go either way. I know when I was younger, like, I had trouble making friends. Therefore, when I had friends that did bad things, I was there with them. You know, supporting them doing the bad things. They never were doing that, but there were other bad things that they shouldn't have been doing.
Peer pressure, herd mentality. It makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do.
And just wanting to be accepted and wanting to have friends that can make a kid, you know, excuse behaviors that they know are bad. Obviously, he ends up doing a lot of worse things, but
the first case we talked about was a good example of that, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think both of those kids came up with the idea of hurting James Bulger. Right. I think that probably one of them did and the other one went along with it. I don't know which one because they clearly were both pretty mentally disturbed at the time. I lean more towards it being John because he ended up being a freak as an adult. Yeah. But at the same time, who knows? So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean.
And that's not to excuse or anything
being a little
what
kid,
he did, because like, that's not okay.
It's hard when you're like a kid with no friends. I was a kid with no friends.
And but, when the only interaction you're getting from your loved ones is abuse and sexual abuse, you mirror that. So you, as a kid, you may not understand that that's wrong because that's all you're experiencing. But we're going to get into why, as an adult, he definitely should have known better. Because this is not the first time. Spoiler alert, this is not the first time that this happens. But as a teenager, he actually did experience a lot of seizures and blackouts, so he was constantly in and out of the hospital during this time. His father, of course, claimed that he was just faking it for attention.
Oh my god. Maybe it's his fucking heart condition, or like that he already had health issues and you were like beating him and he was getting sexually assaulted. Maybe that affected his issues even more, because that can happen.
Yes,
but
stress
he's faking it.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah,
I don't think he wants more of your attention, buddy. Well, you don't give the good kind. He wants good attention.
We'll get into that too.
Yeah. Whatever.
So during his teenage years, Gacy realizes that he was actually attracted to men. This caused a lot of mental turmoil because of the time period, the way that his father was.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the 50s, 60s mostly, right?
Yeah.
By the time he's a teenager.
So it's not really a good time to be having that sort of turmoil, because it's not like today where you have that turmoil, it's kind of stressful, you have some homophobic kids at school, you might get beat up, you might not.
It depends on, where you live and like what your family's like. Today there's still like plenty of horrific shit happening with queer kids, but
there really is.
Yeah, back then it was like, there was still like some schools were still segregated.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much racism and homophobia and stuff. And, like, it was illegal to get married if you were gay in, like, a lot of states in America at that time. So,
and also, his dad was already abusive. So you can only imagine, like, him in his head trying to, like, if my dad finds out, he might actually kill me, sort of thing. Which still does happen. Parents do still do that. Which is crazy to me.
So insane.
Because that's your kid. Why are you treating them like that?
Yeah.
But John was going through this turmoil, and he did go through this turmoil basically his whole life. He did not graduate high school, but he did graduate from the Northwestern Business College in Chicago. So I don't really know how he graduated from college if he didn't graduate high school. Maybe he got his GED.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a different time, so it might have been a little different on like the qualifications required or whatever. I'm not sure. I've never thought about that.
No, I didn't
never
either.
Occurred to
I
me.
couldn't really find like if he got his GED or not, and honestly, I don't really care if he got his GED or not. But he did become a salesman and a manager at a shoe store because he had this degree, which was really good for him because it was a decent job. And in 1964, he met and became engaged to his first wife, Marilyn Myers. Her father owned 3 KFC restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. So, of course, they moved there so that John could manage the restaurants, and they had 2 kids. So, at this point, it seems like John has grown from his childhood and is actually doing really good for himself.
Seems.
And in the 1970s, he became a self-made contractor and a Democratic precinct captain in Chicago. So I'm assuming that they moved back to Chicago. He himself actually speculated that he was only so politically involved to antagonize his father, who mocked him for his interest in politics. And this is a direct quote. "I was always looking for acceptance because my dad made me feel that I was never good enough." which is a really sad quote. But when you're looking at who's saying
my
it...
dad makes me feel that way all the time. I don't hurt children or people at all. So
Exactly.
I'm just saying, that's, unfortunately, sometimes dads just do that.
Yeah, that's just... But his dad was, like, really an asshole. His dad was, like, super asshole. But he was really well liked in his community, so even if his dad didn't like him, literally his entire community did. He organized cultural gatherings and the JC civic group. He called this the happiest time in his life. He even did get some praise from his father, who said he was wrong about him.
Oh my gosh.
Like, gee, thanks, Dad. That really makes up for all the beatings and you saying that I'm faking seizures. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, then, like, he did get the acceptance that he was craving.
Yeah, he did get the acceptance that he wanted from his dad, which is a good thing. I don't think that lasted for very long, though. He wanted... John Wayne Gacy wanted to go for alderman, the mayor, and then the Senate. So, like, he was super into his political career. He was, like, ready. This is also
corrupt. Jeez.
They really are. This was also when he became a member of the Jolly Joker Clown Club in Chicago, and he frequently performed at children's parties, charity fundraisers, and other events as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown. And in a later conversation with detectives, he stated, "Clowns can get away with murder," when discussing his crimes.
Can they, though? Because you were literally caught, bro.
Well, that's kind of why I made the title what I did, because clowns do not get away with murder. That's actually, the first person.
Everybody is terrified of clowns.
And I think he's part of the reason why.
Yeah. Fair.
Speaking of his crimes, by the way, there's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
So,
jeez.
In 1968, he was accused of sexually assaulting one boy and attempting to assault another. Of course, he denied it, and some of the community actually did believe him over the victim. Not only that, he convinced one of his employees to assault the boy to keep him from testifying.
Oh my god.
Nevertheless, he was sentenced to 10 years for this. However, he only served 18 months for being a model prisoner.
Yeah, of course. And they all believe he was like this upstanding citizen.
Oh, there's a lot of police negligence, I guess I could say, in this case.
Well, and he's a white man, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah,
it's also happening,
you know, the 70s
young
at this
boys.
Point. And, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's not that uncommon, unfortunately, for police negligence in this kind of thing.
Yeah. The following year, he was arrested again for luring another teen boy into his car. And he actually drove the boy to his house, where Gacy attempted to force him into sex. Unfortunately, the charges were dropped because the boy didn't appear during trial. Which, for me, I feel
that's the thing. That's like a pretty common thing.
The charges.
Like,
you shouldn't drop the charges.
Yeah, like, it's not fair. You're making them face the person who was raping them, and you think literally. That, like, if that person is unable to get up in front of that person, I don't blame them. But, like, then that person gets away with it because this person, like, let them testify in another way. Don't make them get up and look at him.
Yeah,
it's just not right. It's not fair. And it puts them in harm's way because, I mean, even now, it's still not completely foolproof to have two people who fucking hate each other in a courtroom, because if somebody decides that they want to hurt somebody, they manage to get in with a weapon, they will kill them. Like, it's happened before. It could happen. Yeah. So, like, it's not smart to put a victim into that situation. It's actually, like, one of the stupidest things to me that is, like, how it works.
Even for the 70s, I feel like it's just so stupid.
Yeah.
I really don't get it.
You're putting this teenage boy through this shit after he's already been through being, like, kidnapped and raped almost. And managed to get away. And you know this guy's done it before because he was literally convicted of it.
He was convicted of it and only served 18 months. So, after all of this, his wife divorces him, and she obviously receives custody of their two children. And he does remarry.
So gross. Like, I cannot blame her divorcing him. I cannot imagine how gross I would feel, like, knowing that I had children with somebody who was doing that to children.
Yeah, literally so gross. And I'm pretty sure they had a son, too. Yeah, so gross. And I'm sure she felt the same way. He does remarry in 1972 to his high school sweetheart, Carol Hoff. And fun fact, she was only married to him for 4 years before she divorces him. So he is not married for very long to either of these women because, obvious reasons.
They're too good for him.
And not only does he remarry, he also needs to receive financial assistance from his mother to purchase his home in Norwood, Illinois, which is where he commits his murders. So your mama bought you a house, and your thanks is that you're about to kill a bunch of people in that house that she bought for you?
That's fucking weird.
It is! So weird. I will say, his first murder, which happened in January of 1972, was not necessarily one that he had planned out. He lured 16-year-old Timothy McCoy to his house for sex, and he awoke the next morning to find McCoy in the doorway with a knife. So he thinks that McCoy is trying to kill him or attack him or something. So he rushes to the doorway, wrestles the knife away, and stabs him to death.
Oh my god.
And then, after this, he realizes that McCoy wasn't attacking or even threatening him. He just made breakfast for the both of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, rushing with no questions asked may,
hey buddy, what's the knife for?
Right. But, I guess when you wake up to somebody standing in your doorway with a knife.
Yeah, but,
you don't
he's
really
in the doorway.
Yeah.
Apparently, John had enough time to get up and go over there. And,
yeah.
for the record, this is, a very overweight man.
Yeah.
Getting up out of bed and running over there is not a quick task when you're an overweight person. I
and
know
you're also
because
I'm
not as overweight as he is, but I am overweight. And
again,
getting
Timothy
out of bed is a
16
task.
Yeah.
I'm not even that overweight. I just, I need to take my fucking time, bro.
But
I cannot imagine.
Anyway.
And, you're half asleep. You're not fast when you're half asleep.
No, I'm not fast when I'm half asleep. I usually go back to sleep for another 2 to 3 hours when I'm half asleep. So,
I
sleep a lot.
Back to sleep. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so he realizes that he likes killing. He liked killing McCoy. And he received sexual pleasure from killing McCoy.
He's like, wow, it's so awesome that I just murdered him after he made me breakfast. I feel so good about this. You should feel horrified.
Goofy. Yeah. Any normal person would be like, oh my god, I'm
a normal person probably wouldn't be in this situation because that was such a big jump to that conclusion.
Yeah, literally. I guess I can see a self-defense plea there, but also he was 16 years old.
What a quick jump to that conclusion.
In his 30s.
Honestly,
late 30s,
the kid had self-defense if he was attacking John. Because man just
John lured him to his house.
Technically.
Yeah.
Even if the kid was a consenting party, he's not actually consenting because he's 16.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
He actually had a fucking case there more. So, make it make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. None of the reason that John Wayne Gacy does any of this makes any sense. He literally had a good life where he was at. He was managing some KFCs. He had a house. He had a wife. He had an ex-wife with 2 kids. He had a political career. He was a party clown. He wanted to. Yeah, he just wanted to. And that's the whole thing is he literally
there are
just
things that just wanting to is an excuse. I just wanted to get a tattoo. Fuck it. Yeah, whatever. Your body, your life. You can't just want to kill somebody. That's not okay.
No, it is really not. It was really,
already bad
really
enough.
Not.
You just wanted to have sex with little boys. That's a problem too.
That is a problem.
This isn't something that you just want to do. What's wrong with you? Get therapy.
A lot of things. Yeah, therapy would have probably been really good for John. But of course, this was in a time where men did not seek therapy at all.
That's not right.
No, it's not. This whole thing is just so sad and gross.
Yeah, I don't like it.
We're going to talk about another of Gacy's victims. And this victim was actually an employee of his, which turns into somewhat of a pattern.
Oh my god.
But this employee was 18-year-old John Butkovich. He had gone, I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce that. I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't know. He had gone to Gacy's house to discuss overdue pay. So, obviously, that's something
he's just a terrible boss in many ways.
Yeah, he's a really bad boss. And not only is he a bad boss in that way, he also gave him alcohol and tricked him into putting handcuffs on.
How do you go to... I mean, like, no blame to this 18-year-old, because, like,
he was
18-year-olds are stupid and drunk. But also, how do you, like, go to your boss and be like, you owe me money? And then he's like, well, have some drink. And you're like, okay. Sure.
Well, that was slightly normal for the time period, I'm pretty sure.
I wouldn't have. I don't know. I wasn't there.
He was underage to be consuming alcohol.
Yeah, even for the time period, that was illegal, so...
Yeah. And then, after the handcuffs were on, he strangled him. So that's murder number 2. And after he uses the handcuffs in this murder, he uses them frequently.
Oh my god.
He would trick his victims into putting them on by telling them he was showing them a magic trick. John's parents were very suspicious of Gacy and called the police more than 100 times, urging them to investigate him. But they didn't.
Yeah, was he, like, dumping the body somewhere, or, like...
We're going to talk about that. We're about to talk about that. So, we're going to take a break from the murder for a second. In the mid-1970s, 2 more young men accused Gacy of rape. And he was questioned about the disappearance of others. And he calls this time his cruising years. And this is when he committed most of his murders. The majority of his victims were buried in his crawl space, which had trenches or common graves, which were dug by 17-year-old employee Gregory Godzik, which was another one of Gacy's victims. So he quite literally dug his own grave.
That is so fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, it was another one of his employees.
Well, and then, like, those, like, at that point, these, like, teenage employees, that's, like, the age my dad would have been around.
Yeah.
Because he was born,
well, with Gacy, he never I don't think he ever hired anybody above, like, 20.
Yeah, I'm just, like, in my head, I'm thinking, like, what if, like, my parents had been born, like, in this area? Like, what if my dad had been living in this area? My dad could have been a victim, sort of thing. Like, that's one of those things, just relating into it just to, like, sort of make it, like, and honestly, it's heartbreaking either way, obviously, but I just think that sometimes it helps people realize how terrible something is when they relate it to their own lives. For me, I think it's horrible either way, but I just also think of this way to relate it, like, as in these kids that he's killing, my dad would have been around that age, around that time, sort of thing.
Your dad would have been,
like,
in the
I just think
it's
smart for people to, like, if you are having trouble, like, feeling the weight of a situation like this, to imagine it, you know, think of how this could have affected your life, sort of thing. And it really helps you see the perspective there of just how horrific things can be. I obviously think it's horrific either way. I'm just, sometimes that kind of thing hits me.
This is one of those cases that, like, when you hear about it, it haunts you. Mm-hmm. Because it's just so terrible.
Well, and then, like, these kids' parents are, like, probably telling them to get a job. And then they go,
they definitely
and they get this job, you know, and then, you know, your 17-year-old son goes missing. because and you don't even realize, and eventually you find out that it's because of the manager, and it's like, oh my god, like I told him to get that job or whatever, you know, like that's probably such a horrific thing.
Or it's like you're John's parents and you urge and call the police more than 100 times trying to get them to look into this dude, and they just don't.
Yeah.
And they just don't.
It's so
They called over 100 times. At that point, why would you not just say, you know what, let's go take a look. Just to get them off our backs.
Like, there's, you know, even if you don't think somebody's a suspect, if you're getting a tip, you're supposed to look into it. Especially if you're getting it all these times.
Over 100 times.
Man, these people feel really sure about this. Maybe we should look into this. Like,
especially when this guy has a history of raping
and I mean,
young boys.
There are other, what's it called? Like other cases where police officers do their due diligence. They'll get like hundreds and hundreds of tips that are all different, and they'll look into every single one. But these people, for whatever reason, just didn't look into this, even though they were getting the same tip over and over. You know what I mean?
I think it was because of how well liked Gacy was in his community. I really do.
They're
like,
stupid.
oh, he's well liked. He wouldn't, but he would if you look at his record.
Did.
He did several times. So, not all of his victims were murdered, though. And we know that because, you know, obviously he has sexually assaulted several young boys at this point. But in the case of 19-year-old Robert Donnelly, it's a little bit worse than what he had done to his previous sexual assault victims. He abducted Robert at a bus stop in Chicago, and once they got to his house, he tortured and raped Robert for hours. He would dunk his head in a bathtub until he passed out, and shot him with blanks, performing fake executions on him.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this one is really, really sad. Like, when I was reading about this, it genuinely made me so sick to my stomach. He was in so much pain, he begged Gacy to kill him.
Poor kid.
Poor kid. Gacy let him go and warned him not to tell anyone. But of course...
First thing I'd be doing out of there. Are you kidding me? I'd be walking into the street saying, he just fucking did this shit to me!
Oh, yeah. Well, Robert reported him to the police. But when the police investigated, Gacy said it was a consensual sex slave encounter, and they didn't pursue it further. Oh, and then a month later, he killed again.
Oh my god.
So, the police are lacking severely in this case. If they had just investigated Gacy for like 2 minutes, they would have realized that he's the one that's been making all of these boys go missing.
Literally. Oh my god.
And also, if it was a consensual sex slave thing, why would he have gone to the police and reported it? If it was consensual.
And if it was like a consensual thing, like literally, like, you think he consented to that? And like, if he did for some reason, like, why would he be fucking telling you about it? And then also, like, isn't this, how old was this kid again?
19.
I mean, okay, so it's not like a minor, but like,
that's still
like
a
19-year-old. Like, this is still a kid. And like, that's probably a big reason they didn't look into it too, is because this is like an adult instead of a child. But they also clearly weren't looking into the children ones that much either. So it's just...
No, they weren't looking into any of it.
Like,
which is the problem.
If he reported that, it's literally just one person's word against the others. You have to look for physical evidence, because now you're saying, well, we didn't look at the physical evidence. We only looked at what you both said, and we believe him. You have to look at physical evidence if two people are saying conflicting things. You have to look for it.
But they didn't want to do that because
no fucking
Wayne
investigating being done.
They're like, he's a party clown.
They probably didn't even look at him like in person. They probably just fucking called him.
They probably did just fucking call him.
They were probably just like, John, hey, another kid is saying you did some shit to him. So stupid, am I right?
Yeah, literally. And it's like, you guys aren't seeing the pattern here?
All these lying kids.
damn, all these kids are really just out to get you, huh, John?
It's so stupid.
It really is so fucking stupid. It really, ugh.
Yeah, it's so icky.
Gacy killed so many people that in 1978, his crawl space was full of his victims. So he had to dispose of them in a river near a bridge off Interstate 55. So at this point, he has killed so many boys that he doesn't even have room under his house to store them anymore. I think I read in an article,
just
33 confirmed.
Oh my god.
And 5 are still unidentified.
Oh my god, that is so sad.
It is. It really is. I did read that one of them that was unidentified, but then was identified, I believe, in 2017, was buried near his shed. So he was also using his backyard to dispose of some of the bodies as well.
Like,
as well as this river.
Notice. Like,
well, they did. The police just didn't give a shit.
Yeah. Oh my god, that is so
the police just did not give a shit. And by this point in 1978,
like,
it's just
fucking suck
John.
At your jobs.
His wife his second wife had already left him at this point, and I don't believe they had any children, so that's good.
Well, if they did, she probably got custody anyway, because
yeah.
Well,
he didn't get custody of the first two.
Here's the thing: is like, if everybody thought he was this upstanding citizen, the only reason he didn't get custody is because he's a man, so that's like a different thing in itself.
Yeah, that's a different issue. But in this case, it kind of helped because I don't think that he should have been around children at all.
No, yeah, 100%. So it worked out there. But I mean, yeah, if they think he's this huge upstanding citizen, it actually doesn't make sense for them not to give him any custody.
Yeah.
But maybe it's only the police who think that.
I'm starting to think that it's only the police just because of this whole case. I'm still thinking about how John's parents called over 100 times urging police. It's like, it reminds me of the Sherry Rasmussen case where her parents called and urged them to look into, what was her name again?
Stephanie.
Crazy Eyes.
Yeah.
Stephanie. Yeah. Or, like, it just reminds me of that. Like, there's so much police negligence that really could have saved a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference
they were
there
like,
is
no,
they were
that's
protecting one of
John.
their own. Like,
right. But here it's like,
they literally
my buddy
don't even
John.
have a reason.
Hired him for my kid's grad party a few months back. He's a pretty good party clown, you know.
Hired him for my kid's grad party. One of the other kids did go missing.
But
sure.
It doesn't
it's
have anything
clearly
to
not
do with
related.
him. It's not related. Yeah, he does have, sexual assault of a minor who was a boy on his record, but he was a really good prisoner, so they let him out after only 18 months. So obviously he didn't do it. And then the other kid just didn't show up to trial, which means obviously he didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, not that the full amount of time would have been much better. Even if he had served it, because by the time he would have got out from that was still during the time he was killing, wasn't it?
Yes, but it depends on if his fellow inmates found out what he did or not, because, Gen Pop Justice, Chomos, they do not get treated very well.
The cops might not always be right and doing things how they should be, but them prisoners, they don't fuck around.
So now John is disposing of his victims in a river. So that's a little less private than a crawl space, so it is harder for you to hide bodies.
Yeah.
That isn't how he gets caught, though.
Stupid.
On December 11th of 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast went missing after telling his mother he was going to meet Gacy for a potential construction job, because he still has the business. He is still a contractor while he's killing all these boys.
So stupid.
And his family files a missing persons report, which leads to police finally searching Gacy's Norwood home.
And then they're like, dude, there's a lot of bodies here.
No, they discovered several suspicious items in there, like police badges, a pistol, hypodermic needles, porn, gay porn, and items later revealed to belong to some of his victims.
It's kind of funny to imagine, like, police officers being like, this is suspicious, and it's like gay porn.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I know, like, at the it's
all these young boys are going missing.
It's just
and
funny,
gay
like,
porn.
to imagine gay porn as like evidence.
They're pulling out the gay porno magazine. And they're like, now this is hard hitting evidence right here.
Gay porn does not make you a murderer, guys. Just so you know, it's just that this guy happens to be a murderer who was gay,
who had gay porn in his house.
Interesting that he felt the need to have porn. That's probably where he got some of his ideas, though.
Yeah, the handcuffs, definitely, I think. After a lengthy period of surveillance and investigation, which it was about damn time for, they should have done that shit years ago, they found a receipt in Gacy's home that belonged to Piest, which contradicted his statement that he had no contact with the boy the day he went missing. So, of course, they search more into Gacy's home. And they finally discover the trenches full of bodies under his house.
That is so insane.
Yeah, so I remember the first time that I ever, discovered this case, I watched a documentary, and I don't know if it was reenacted footage or if it was actual footage of them pulling the bodies out.
Oh my god. Of
the crawl space and putting them in the ambulances, but that literally that still is burned into my brain.
Oh my god.
Of just them pulling bodies out on stretchers and putting them in the ambulance. It was crazy. They just kept coming out. Like, there was just so many.
All those kids.
So many.
That's so gross.
Yeah. Yeah. It's disgusting. And he confirmed 33 victims with his police, and there's potentially more that we may not know of. And like I said previously, 5 of them are unidentified. But there was more that were unidentified, but because of the technology that we now have for DNA, we've been able to identify several more of his victims. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that's really good.
They can eventually all be identified. I mean, it's crazy, like, how long these people go unidentified for, but with the way that we have DNA technology now, sometimes they're able to just find, this is a match. Not that it's somebody who's like immediate family a lot of times, but that it's like, this person is like distantly related to them. Let's trace this back. Okay, we finally found them, sort of thing. There are people still like 30, 40 years ago who were murdered who are getting identified today.
Yep, and that's really...
Including some of these kids, probably, because that's like this time ago.
The most recent one was in the 2020s. I don't know if it was 2020, 2021, or 2020. I think it was 2022. But yeah, one of them recently got identified, really recently. So it's good that we have that technology now. However, we wouldn't really need to use it for this case had the police just listened the first time.
But, I mean, it's so sad to think, like, there are some of these kids, like, that maybe their parents died before this was found out or something, but it's like they just don't know that that's, like, they just somehow never got identified, and it's like, you hope people were looking for them,
Yeah.
It's, thinking about unidentified people, like John and Jane Doe's, just breaks my fucking heart, like... Where are the people that cared about you? There has to be somebody. Where are they?
Right.
So it's just so sad to think about.
But I will say, I have seen a lot of cases that have, a John or Jane Doe, and they get identified because of those people that care about them. Because some of those people just don't. They just do not stop looking.
Yeah. I found out not that long ago about one where, like, this woman finally gets identified, and it's like nobody was looking for her because, like, all these people just thought she left and, like, they didn't like her or something. I was like, that's so fucked. Like, it was like her husband was, like, with somebody else or something. I don't even know. It was so weird. I was just like, none of y'all, like, thought to look for her.
Even
like,
if you don't
what
like
was
somebody.
Like, what was going on that none of y'all, like, she didn't contact any of you and you just assumed she was fine?
Right.
I don't know. It was just crazy to me. I'm like, I don't know who she was or, like, what kind of person she was or what kind of person any of them were, but it just is so sad to think about, like, somebody not having anybody looking for them.
It is really sad.
So it hurts your heart.
And I think I don't know if necessarily that happened with John's victims, but the police certainly did not look for them, which was the biggest problem in this case. Because had the police actually taken a lot of these reports seriously and looked into them and not just believed what John said, we wouldn't even be here.
100%, yeah.
We wouldn't even be here right now talking about this. So,
or we would, but it would only be, it would have been as a small case. Because there was one,
Yeah. Or it would have just been the sexual assault. Which is terrible and disgusting, but at least 33 people are dead because
assault
of him.
is a very terrible thing, but it's something you can live with, is the thing.
Yeah.
It's something
you can't
that
live
you can
if you're murdered.
get better from, and you can go to therapy and live a good life still.
You can't do that if you're murdered.
So,
and to go through that and then
not
get
to
brutally murdered,
not to dismiss like all
worse.
the horrible things that you experience when you go through assault, because clearly it is a terrible thing, and it can affect you for the rest of your life. Some people it does, some people they manage to move on from it. It's different, for each person, but it's one of those things where it's just it's at least you're alive. So
yeah,
that's just so sad.
So finally, John Wayne Gacy was arrested on December 21st, 1978. In 1979, the house was dismantled in a search for more evidence, and in 1980, the house and everything else on the property was demolished. And eventually, they built a new house there, which personally, I wouldn't really want to live in that house. But
yeah, I'm kind of shocked if it didn't get burned down or something. A lot of times, like, the people in the community, if they try to, like, put a new house there, the people in the community, somebody will burn that bitch down. They're like, no.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's, like, actually
not
a common thing with, like, that kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, no, you're not having a house here.
No,
Yuck.
I wouldn't want a house there.
I mean, they probably aren't telling people who are looking at the house.
Well, the address was in all the articles I read, so they definitely know.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like some people don't look up an address. They might not realize.
True.
Like, I don't know the address that John Wayne Gacy was murdering people at.
Would you like to?
Yeah, because what if I decide to move there one day?
I didn't want to include it here just because I'm like, what if somebody does live there? I don't want to dox them,
Well, I mean, we're not doxing the people. It's not their fault that somebody else lived in the house that was previously there and did that. I don't know. You can message it to me.
I'll DM it too, yeah.
I mean, it's public information. Anybody can look it up.
Yeah, that's true. One of the detectives said that if the devil lived anywhere, it was at that house. Which, I mean...
Just wait till we talk about these other guys.
I know.
They always call them, like, the murder house or the house of horrors and all kinds of things like that. They always say that same shit every time, like, one of these serial killers has bodies in their house. And unfortunately, not that uncommon with these bitches.
I know. What the hell is up with that?
I'll probably talk about it later, but there was a guy that, like, he made furniture, like, out of people skin. And, like, nobody had ever been in his house, so they didn't know.
Isn't that what Ed Kemper did?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say it. Yes.
I knew.
I mean, it was a huge deal when people finally figured out. Yeah, he was like they called him a gentle giant.
No.
Because he was like, gentle. He was huge and like everybody thought he was really nice.
Because he was buddy-buddy with the police.
Yeah, no, he became friends with a bunch of them. And then he had like a literal belt made of nipples.
Yeah, he was
whoa.
a weird guy. I was watching some...
That one, like, when you say, like, oh, if the devil lived anywhere, it's here, I'm like, what about that guy's house?
Yeah.
The house where, like, there was a lampshade made of skin and, like, a belt made of nipples and, like, just furniture made out of people. Like, that's
gross.
Crazy.
That makes my skin crawl.
Anyway, I mean, not to say that this isn't terrible stuff that John Wayne Gacy did, because obviously I feel that it is some of the worst shit in the world. But at the same time, I'm also like, I guess at least he didn't make them into furniture. what he did was terrible and he deserves to die painfully.
We'll get into
like, that. Really painfully. Like, I hope
we'll get into that.
I want, like, the parents of the kids that he killed to be involved. But,
well,
I mean, whatever, I guess. But
we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Kemper, like, that shit is the craziest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Yeah,
I don't think I even want to cover it, actually. Thinking about it.
I don't think that I could handle covering it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the butchering people. Like, I don't like butchering animals. I'm a vegetarian. Like, and then imagining you doing that to a person, too?
Yeah, gross.
Oh, my God.
It's one of those things that I can't even fathom.
So disrespectful to the human
like that
being.
One girl.
So disrespectful, so disgusting, so psycho, literally.
It's literally psycho.
Literal psychopath.
Literally.
No better way to say it.
Ugh.
Yeah, anyway,
going back to Mr. Gacy here. On March 13th of 1980, he was convicted with 33 counts of murder, 1 count of sexual assault, 1 count of sodomy, and 1 count of indecent liberties with a child. Now, I feel like all of these should have got 33 counts for each thing.
Because he did it at least 33 times. Also, bring back that kid that got away.
Yeah, so it should be 34 for the bottom
34
3.
plus.
Plus.
Like, let's say there's an unknown amount more as well. Because you know what, there could be, like, yeah, there's probably other kids that, like, just didn't say anything because he told them not to.
Or he was their boss and they just didn't say anything. Because, like I said, he only hired people that were, like, younger than, like, 23. 23 and younger.
I'm 23.
Me too. Ugh. But anyway, he died on May 10th, 1994, with his last words allegedly being, "Kiss my ass."
No, I don't think I will.
I'm pretty sure he was the guy that requested... I don't remember which death row inmate
requested... Kiss mine, John Wayne Gacy.
Honestly.
Bitch.
One of the death row inmates requested dirt for their final meal, and I think it might have been John Wayne Gacy, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna look that up real quick, because I don't know. It fascinates me what people request for their final meals. And I feel like John would be the kind of guy.
Dirt. What a freak.
I hope he ate dirt too.
No, John Wayne Gacy's last meal: 12 deep fried shrimp, a bucket of original recipe chicken from KFC.
That makes sense for him. I was gonna say, I feel like
and a pound where did it go?
If it wasn't dirt, it was KFC. A pound?
That's what it says.
At least he chose one healthy thing. Jesus Christ. He had a heart condition and he was sitting there eating a whole bucket of KFC.
He was about to die anyway. He said, finally, my one chance.
I mean, yeah. I wish he
didn't deserve. Honestly, I get, like, the point of, like, a last meal being like, okay, well, since we're about to kill you, I guess you deserve something. Some of these people don't deserve something. You know what I mean?
Like John Wayne Gacy. Like, they should just feed them dirt.
There's a reason that you're killing them. Did y'all forget?
Apparently. Well, it seems like they didn't really want to arrest or kill John in the first place. You know? It just seems like they didn't want to do that in the first place.
Anybody who is at the point where they're on death row, like, if they did something that deserves getting killed for, do they really deserve a meal beforehand?
No.
Like, when you think about it. It's like, oh, well, we're killing them, which is, like, the worst thing you can do. Okay, if they did something so bad that they deserve to die for it, do they deserve something good right beforehand? No.
Like Ed Kemper.
And you know what? Bring back the chair.
Yeah. Especially for people like
I know, I have such conflicting feelings on the death penalty because I hate, like killing people is bad, but at the same time,
say "kiss my ass" after you assaulted and murdered all these young boys, you can get the chair.
He's getting the chamber.
Get the chair. You can get the fucking
they're like, we'll only do lethal injections now. It's the least painful way. No, give him the chair. Give him the gas chamber. I don't know. Make it hurt. He deserves it.
I will say that there was some issues with his lethal injection, so he had a long way out. Normally, I don't think the lethal injection takes too long, but they kind of fucked it up, and I think they
gave him the wrong dosage because he's way too overweight.
Well, it was painful for him.
They gave him the wrong dosage because he just ate, like, a giant thing of fucking KFC and a bunch of fried shrimp and stuff. Dude just, like, made his weight more.
Probably had a heart attack before he actually
It probably took that shit longer to hit his system because his stomach was full of KFC.
I think they put it in wrong. I think they put it in his arm wrong something. I forgot. I should have put it in here, but I didn't. But, yeah, He had a longer one, which makes me kind of happy because that's what he deserves.
Yeah, bro's been euthanized.
Bro was euthanized, but as he deserves.
Here's the thing, like I said, I have conflicting feelings on it because like killing people is like pretty fucked up. But at the same time,
yeah, but he already did that 33 times. If you're at the point where you
deserve like to not be alive for it, and like what you did was that horrific. Why should it be peaceful?
Yeah, why do I have to pay for you to be alive with my tax dollars? I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it costs plenty to kill them, too.
Euthanize them. Yeah, but I mean, shit.
But
if you're giving me the choice...
I would rather spend the money on that. I will give you the tax dollars personally.
Yeah, literally.
You don't have to take it out of my paycheck. I'm on my way to give you this money.
Somebody like John Wayne Gacy, I'm fully ready. Like, here, take my money. Do you need more? Do you need more? I'll give it to you. Like, whatever it takes to get his ass out of here, because we do not need that in our society. We do not need that. We just, no, get rid of him.
The world would be a better place without people like that, but unfortunately, they hide among us. There's an imposter.
Which is why John Wayne Gacy got away with this for so long, because he was so well liked and a little party clown and a politician and a manager at 3 KFCs.
You know, like when I look at the pictures of him, like in his clown stuff, like I genuinely like, you're saying like people were only afraid of clowns once they found out he killed people. I feel like if I saw that, I would have been afraid of him.
Yeah.
He was creepy looking.
He's just a scary looking guy. And in his mugshot, he's smiling, which pisses me off.
And, like, more than... First of all, one person married him, but then another person did.
2 people married...
What?
Well, I mean, to be fair, they were only married for 4 years.
Yeah,
before
but,
she, like, left his ass.
Ugly.
Yeah, well, they all are. We get into this every time. They're all ugly.
He's
especially
really
John Wayne
ugly.
Gacy.
There's nothing wrong with being an overweight person. There's nothing wrong with all this other stuff. But
there is something wrong with being John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
If you are John Wayne Gacy,
he's ugly.
Terrible.
Something on the other hand, I'm overweight and I'm beautiful. Anyway.
Not John.
Not John.
Smiling in his fucking mugshot.
Yeah, he really, I don't know, his jowls, like, is that the right word? They look weird.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's the right word. I hate him smiling. I like in his the picture of him. You're a terrible person.
There's a picture of him in the courtroom with his head in his hands, acting so distraught. Like, boy, if you were really that distraught, then why the fuck did you do it
in the first place? You killed a bunch of kids, bro.
Yeah, literally. Killed and raped them.
It's
like, I'm sorry,
actually kind of weird how terrible of quality that first picture is, because I know it was not that long ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's his house.
I mean, like, it was, like... I know that was, like... I guess it was a long time ago. Hold on. What year was he arrested?
He was arrested in 78. December 21st, 1978.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense for these pictures. I just feel like it's so much lower quality than every other picture they have from that same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it may be because it's, like, a crime scene. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah, whatever. I just feel like his mugshot is, like, so clear. And, like,
well,
those pictures are just not clear at all.
Regardless, that is all I have for this monster of a man.
All right. Well, I feel like I went off on most of my tangents during it.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to say about this case than everything we've already said. All the police had to do was look into him the first time, or the second time, or the third time. or
any of the
100
basically.
times. Yeah, and they didn't. And then when they finally did, they discovered something very
It has to have just been that
horrific.
like that last kid's parents, like it has to have been that they were just somehow higher up than John was, because that's the only reason. Or
maybe it was because he was 15.
I mean, there were like, other young kids. Like there was a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Like there were other young kids.
I don't know. I don't really understand why they finally.
Like,
maybe
the
was
only
just
thing
like,
I can
okay,
think of is
finally.
if like the parents of that kid were like somehow higher up or something, or more pillars in the community or something.
Right.
That's the only reason I can think, that because they ignored it for so long.
Do something. They really did. They ignored it for so long. Literal years.
Mm-hmm.
Literal years. He did his first murder in 72, and he was arrested in 78. That's 6 years.
That is so gross.
6
I just hate
years.
it. I just hate it so much.
And prior to that, in the 60s, he was assaulting young boys, and he wasn't getting any.
I don't understand, like,
punishment for that.
I know it's just something sick, like something wrong, like genuinely in their fucking brain chemistry or something. I just don't understand taking satisfaction from like somebody dying.
Yeah, he literally just did it because he wanted to.
If I haven't witnessed like a human death physically in front of me, but like I had to be there, like euthanizing my old dog, sort of thing, and like that was horrific enough, and it was like something I knew was coming for like a month.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And like when I got her, obviously I knew one day she wouldn't be alive anymore. And like I was there for her dying, and it like she didn't even seem like she changed that much between like receiving the euthanasia, like the injection, and like actually being gone. It didn't even seem like she changed that much, you know? Her eyes were still open, like she still weighed the same amount, sort of thing. And still it was horrific to me. Yeah. And that wasn't even violent or anything. It was the most peaceful way to go. Like, I just can't even imagine taking pleasure from that.
Yeah,
from a human being dying, from you causing a death, because death is so hard to be around,
and it's so permanent.
So permanent.
It's so
like
permanent.
It was hitting me, and like as we get closer to her birthday, like it hits me really hard every day. Sorry, I'm crying now because I'm thinking about her. But just like death is such a permanent thing, and like my boyfriend, like he's never gonna meet this dog because I met him after she died, and it hits me like he's never gonna be able to know her. Right. That's how permanent it is. So like he knows so much about her because of me, right? But it's so permanent, and he's never gonna see her. He's never gonna know the experience of knowing her. Right. And that's a dog that I'm talking about. And I think that knowing her was such an incredible thing that it makes me sad that he's never gonna know her. And that's a dog.
And people can do that to a
person and like
and feel good about
enjoy
themselves.
It and want that. And that's crazy.
It's so messed up. It is crazy, and it's fucked up, and it's disgusting.
I can't understand the feeling of wanting to kill somebody. I don't obviously, like I say with like these people, I'm like, they deserve these terrible things to happen to them. These like murderer people, these people who are murdering and hurting kids. Like, I think that they deserve the worst. I still don't know if I could be the person to do that. So maybe that's where all these morals come in with the death sentence and stuff, where they give them their last meal and stuff. Maybe it just comes from having more morals than those people have. But it's just like, I can't imagine how you could feel good about taking somebody away from the world.
I don't either. It's terrible. It's
like, how can that feel good? How can
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I could not tell you, and I'm sure that
I feel guilty for euthanizing my dog that was literally suffering. I feel guilty for that. And I know that I don't need to.
The best
I know that
thing
it's
to
like,
do.
I know that she was suffering, sort of thing. Like, she could barely fucking breathe at the end because of the cancer in her lungs. And I know she was suffering, and I still feel guilty that I had to get her euthanized. So I cannot understand these people who, they feel no remorse and they murder people.
You think it's more of a narcissism thing where they generally see themselves as above.
They put themselves above these people, but I still just don't, I don't think I'll ever actually understand it, because it still just, even with that, does not make sense to me. Just from an emotional standpoint, it really doesn't. I don't think I'll ever get it. And I mean, when I think about it, really, I don't want to get it, because...
No, you don't want to.
I don't think that it's right.
You don't need to understand why they do these things, because at the end of the day, there really isn't a good reason. There will never be a good reason.
Yeah. Well, and I took, like, a psychology class in high school, and I remember somehow we got on the topic of, like, pedophilia, and I remember being like, it's really gross and disgusting, like, sort of thing. And my teacher was like, well, have you ever thought about, like, that these people don't control that feeling? Like, that. And I was like, yeah, but they're acting on it. Like, the acting on it is the problem. So if you can't control a feeling, I guess, like, I still think it's gross and I don't get it. But at the same time, what you choose to do with that feeling is important. So if these people are choosing not to get therapy and are choosing to touch little kids, that's a problem.
Yes.
But at the same time, to some extent, even if it's something that's like a feeling out of their control and they're getting therapy, I'm always going to think it's gross if I find out that somebody's attracted to kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's
gross.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, I feel so weird about it. It's kind of how I feel really conflicted with the death penalty, where I'm like, even if you're not acting on it, I'm still going to feel like you're gross. Yeah. So it's such a tough, such a weird thing to think about, where it's like,
it is.
I guess it's not your fault, but like that you feel that, but at the same time, like, why?
Right.
I don't know. That's kind of a different situation getting into, but I think it relates, since he obviously was a pedophile, but it's,
yeah, he was.
I mean, then again, like, can he control that he got satisfaction from it? He can control that he did it, that he committed murder. Yeah. But can he control how he feels about committing murder? You know what I mean?
He was living pretty much fine. I mean, he was obviously like a child rapist.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, had he not acted on any of those feelings, but had those feelings, like, if he hadn't committed these murders, hadn't raped these kids, but had wanted to rape and murder kids, I would still think he was a bad person, even if he was, like, holding back his urges, because it's still such a gross thing to me. Yet at the same time, that would be out of his control. So it's such a thing where, like, I still think I would view him as a bad person for wanting to do it.
Well, my thing is, I don't think that he ever, like, thought about murdering until he killed McCoy, because then that's when he realized that he liked doing it. Obviously, he had been touching little boys before that, so he knew he liked that. But the murder part didn't happen until he killed McCoy, and then he realized that he really liked it. Like, he was into it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where I think, like, you know, even wanting to do something like that is so gross to me. Yeah. Yet at the same time, if they're not acting on it and they want to do something, but they are holding themselves back because they have morals, it's, like, so weird. You know what I mean? Obviously that part does not apply to this case, because he did the things. But that's just something that I think about, and I don't think I would have thought about it if I hadn't had that psychology class where the teacher said it, where he's like, obviously that's a bad thing, but if they're not doing it and they just have this, like, feeling that they can't control, does that make them a bad person? Right. And, like, I want to say yes, because I don't get it. But at the same time, just because I don't understand something does not make me right. Not understanding something and then saying that because you don't understand it, it's wrong, actually makes you the ignorant person. You know what I mean? Because that's, like, how homophobes are. They don't understand it, therefore they say it's wrong. Right. So it's such a weird, like... It really, like, it gives me turmoil. Like, I've been thinking about this the whole time we've been talking about this case. I'm just like,
because here's the thing,
I want to rip my skin off. Like,
This case makes
it's driving me crazy.
Because the entire time I've been talking about this, all I can see is that footage of the bodies just being wheeled out of
I hope it was just
over
a
and over again.
Reenactment. I hope you didn't actually see bodies getting wheeled out. But
I think it was, but I don't remember.
Even then, I can imagine like why that is so traumatizing. Watching a reenactment of something terrible is still traumatizing.
I couldn't bring myself to watch a John Wayne Gacy documentary again. I just could not do it. So what I did was I just read some articles and gathered my information from there. I just couldn't do it because that one has stuck with me.
I gather most
of
my info
years.
for like all my cases from articles. Every once in a while, it's like I'll talk about stuff I heard in a podcast or on a documentary. But like the stuff that they're getting from those is the same stuff that's in the articles. So.
Well, it helps to have stuff like that or like those shows that cover it when you can't find articles. Like with my last case.
I understand that.
It was really helpful to have like the interrogation, and then there was a show.
Yeah, I think you just got to go wherever the information is.
Yeah, pretty much.
But with John Wayne Gacy, it's everywhere. So
it's everywhere. So I did not have to. He was huge
in a couple ways, guys.
Literally.
I didn't mean it like that, but yeah, that too.
And I also didn't want to include any pictures of him in the clown makeup because everybody's seen that.
Yeah, that's like what everybody
has
sees.
Seen that shit.
Like when they think of it, maybe put a picture at the end or something of the post, just to have it. But like,
so people
everybody knows, of course.
Everybody knows who John Wayne Gacy is.
I would do the mugshot, not the smiling one though, because fuck that guy. Gross.
Yeah. I can't believe he fucking smiled.
So
in this
nasty.
mugshot. I know. Gross.
Ugh. Like, I mean, it's the same thing I've been saying for an hour. Like, I just don't get it. I just don't.
I don't get it either.
I don't get it.
And there is nothing to get. It's literally just because he wanted to.
It's so fucking
That's
weird.
It. And it's so weird, and it's so gross, and I hate it.
I'm glad he's dead. I have to say that.
Me too.
I'm glad that he can't.
Nobody else can be hurt by him.
When it comes down to it, as long as these people are alive, there is a chance of them hurting people still. And like,
especially
honestly, when you think about like the survivors, like it is hurting them from an emotional healing standpoint that he is alive. Honestly, when you think about it,
and I'm sure they have, and I'm
like
sure
there is some amount of closure when he dies.
Guilt. And then I'm sure his ex-wives and his kids have a lot of
could you imagine
issues
like
because of this.
Like imagine his kids, like they're going into school, it's like icebreaker, family tree, and they're like, could I not put my dad down on this? Like,
yeah,
I just don't really want to.
Yeah.
Well, and then like when you think about like when his kids were born, like they're not, like their age is honestly way too close to like some of the kids he was doing this to because of how long he did it for. Like they were only a little bit younger than some of these kids were.
Which is why I'm glad that his first wife got custody of the kids.
Thank God.
Because
who knows if he would have been doing sick and twisted shit to his kids too.
Right.
Because you never know with these people.
Him.
And it's even if he didn't, it still would have been sick if he was around them. Just to think of, like I said with the Brooke case, like it's I don't know if he did anything to his biological daughter, but I don't like there wasn't anything that said anything about it. But like it's almost extra sick to think of him like thinking that his own child is more like doesn't deserve it, but other people's kids do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that would just go to show with the narcissism. Obviously, we don't know if that's the case with either of these. But just if you think about it in that term too, even if they didn't do stuff to their own kid, it's still a different kind of sick either way.
It's just sick and it's just all sick.
It's all sick.
It's all sick.
Yeah, they said he was sickly. They didn't know what kind. Jesus fuck.
in more kinds than one, obviously.
He had heart issues since he was a kid. Why didn't he just fucking die? Jesus.
I mean, he did also have seizures and blackouts that his dad thought was fake, so maybe
why didn't he just fucking die? Maybe his dad should have beat him a little more.
Oh my god, no.
I'm just saying, it would have been a terrible thing, but it would have prevented so much.
Yeah.
Here's
kind of like the situation of like,
it's
would
like
you
when
kill
people
baby
say they
Hitler?
want exactly that's what I was about to say. Like people who talk about going back in time and killing baby Hitler, and it's like, well, baby Hitler's innocent. But then you're
Adult
also
Hitler.
preventing adult Hitler from doing all that stuff. If you could go back in time, you would be seen as the bad guy because you murdered the baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of it being like, oh, here's this thing that happened with this huge thing. Instead, there would be an article that's like, this man murdered this baby in cold blood.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know? Like, it would be, you know, you become the bad guy because they were innocent sort of thing. So it's such a weird... Again, conflicting. So many conflicting emotions in my life.
Yeah, you're just always conflicted.
I'm always conflicted. I don't understand how people aren't emotional sometimes. I'm full of emotion. I am feeling everything all of the time.
I don't tend to be emotional around other people because I feel like, I don't know.
I don't shut the fuck up about my emotions, quite frankly.
Even if I'm not seeking attention, I feel like I am, so I cry in private.
Well, I just like, sometimes I just get overwhelmed and I just start crying. Like, I can't help it.
It'd be like that. It'd be like that.
Well, and then like, Skylar, he's not a very like, emotionally driven person, if that makes sense. Like, it's not that he doesn't feel things, he does. It's just more or less like, in a lot of situations, he's kind of like, out of my control, therefore I'm not going to worry about it. Or like things like that. The same way. I don't think that on a regular, like, any moment of the day that he's feeling a particular emotion unless something's happening. Whereas me, even if nothing's happening, I am feeling so much.
You're crying
all of the time.
Couch.
Like, I might not be physically always crying, but like, I am always feeling things. All of the time. And a lot of the time, almost all of the time, I am feeling multiple things that don't always go together.
It'd be like
anytime that I'm sad, there's something that I'm happy for. Like, when it comes down to it, like, usually things I get sad about are things that I am happy about in life, if that makes sense. Like, I'm sad that people die. Like, I'm sad when I think about, like, something happening to the people or animals that I care about. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the reason that I'm sad is because I'm so happy that they're alive right now.
Yeah.
And, like, the other way around, like, I don't know, like, when I'm really happy, whenever I'm, like, super, super happy, like, this used to happen to me a lot as a kid when I would go to, like, friends' birthday parties or whatever. Like, I'd be so happy, I was hanging out with my friends, I was having a great time, and I'd kind of look around and I'd be like, the world is so beautiful, and I'd be so sad all of a sudden. Because of how happy I was, I would just suddenly be so sad because I was like, this is so beautiful and I'm so happy, and life isn't always good, but right now life is so good. And then I'm like, I'm so sad because life is not always good. Like, I don't know. I'm always feeling multiple things. And a lot of times they don't go together, so. I'm just a very emotional person.
Is feeling.
Like, when you, what's it called? The ones with all the emotions? The movies? Inside Out. That. I'm like, I was thinking of genre. Like, all of them are fighting in my head at every moment.
And then one wins for a second.
Literally, but like, I feel like I'm always feeling at least two emotions.
It'd be like that
I don't know if that's like weird, but that's that's how I feel. I guess that's I should just how you feel now, though.
Yeah, I do have to go shopping, and we have gotten very off topic.
I know, it's just okay. I mean, it's the end of the day.
You just have a lot of feelings.
I just have a lot of feelings. I mean,
and you just need to let them out.
And
that's okay. You're like that one girl from Mean Girls who doesn't even go there. She just has a lot of feelings. She just has a lot of feelings.
I guess we'll bring this episode to a close.
Yes, we will bring this episode to a close.
Alright. We'll see everybody next week.
Kiss my ass. Just kidding. Bye.
Bye.